Morning, everybody. Welcome back to Oschersleben. It's day 2 for the ADAC GT4 Germany, and we are getting ready for qualifying for the second race of the season. So as you can see, the cars are currently in the pits, getting ready to go. Yesterday, we saw a debut win for Simon Connor Prim and Jan Philipp Springerop. A brilliant drive from them ahead of Sami Matti Trogan and Enzo Juli, with Mex Jansen and Nico Hanke coming home in third place. But the big story yesterday was the defending champions, Mike David Ortman and Hugo Sasser. Mike David Ortman was at the wheels, and sadly, he never even got to complete a racing. A circuit that has 14 corners, 7 to the left and 7 to the right. The local wildlife, well, they don't know what's hitting today, do they? The noise that they don't normally expect here in the outskirts of Magdeburg, and it is a glorious setting for the ADAC weekend. Part of the DTM package. It has been wonderful that the ADAC GT4 now comes under the same umbrella, part of the same setup, and it has been a great weekend so far. The Saturday racing that we had was wonderful, and today we're expecting more of the same. The wildlife on that little lake, which is just nestled on the left-hand side, in between, well, as the cars exit turn 3, if they look to the left, you'd see the lake and what looks like a bit of a wildlife sanctuary. We had geese there yesterday, we got ducks there today. Who knows what they'll be there tomorrow. Conditions are perfect. The temperature 19.1 degrees centigrade. It is, I would say, getting warmer and warmer by the minute. It's certainly warmer than it was this time yesterday. And the track will no doubt get quicker as well as more and more rubber is laid down. We just had DTM qualifying. It was a spectacular session. But what happened in that session is the times came tumbling at the very end. And we'd expect to see in this qualifying session the drivers perhaps waiting till late on during what is a fairly short, sharp qualifying session of 20 minutes. Maybe waiting till late on before really giving it their all and trying to put in that hot lap. So we may have a fairly quiet start to the session, but then it will pick up as time goes on. And if the DTM qualifying is anything to go by, it will be pretty frantic when we get to the 20th minute. So, to summarise, everybody, good morning. We've had a few technical problems with our microphones here, but hopefully you can hear us now loud and clear. The sun is shining, the drone is in the sky. Yes, the ADAC have brought the drone back, and it is zooming around the circuit, giving us some great angles. Just to recap, the Oschersleben Motorsport Arena, which is on the outskirts of Magdeburg, it's a circuit that is 3.667 kilometers around. That equates to about 2.27 miles, 14 turns, 7 to the left and 7 to the right. The car's racing in a clockwise direction. Track has very little in the way of gradient change, just 23 meters. Myself and my colleague Chris Hartley, we did a hot lap around the circuit yesterday. I say a hot lap, we were on foot, we ran it. I won't tell you what the lap time was, it wasn't anything spectacular, but it was actually good because we could see just how little undulation there is. So you can see we have cars on track getting ready. Now, how many have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 8 cars out on track. Many of the drivers perhaps waiting till later in the session. Now, it is a brave strategy to leave it till late in the session to try and put it in your hot lap, because as we have seen in other sessions this weekend, and as we saw in the first qualifying session for the ADAC GT4 on Friday, you only need to get a red flag in the closing stages and it can completely ruin your day. Oschersleben does not create many overtaking opportunities. It is a fairly narrow track, really only one main overtaking opportunity, and that is at the end of the pit straight into turn 1. So grid position probably more important here than it is at most of the other circuits. In fact, I would say probably any of the other circuits on the ADAC GT4 calendar. To talk about the calendar, we have 6 rounds in the ADAC GT4 Germany, as is become the custom here. It is the 5th season of this series. We are here at Oschersleben, and then we will head to Zandvoort in June. We're riding on board with Eric Scalvini. Great to have Eric Scalvini here in ADAC GT4 Germany. Those of you who follow ADAC closely will recognize the name. He was in TCR Germany last year. This is a completely different discipline. He had a fairly torrid day of it yesterday and came home eventually out of the points in 17th position. His co-driver is the 2020 GT4 champion, Nicola Moller-Madsen, the Danish driver, sharing with the Italian driver, and we're expecting some good things from them as the season progresses. So nobody is putting in a lap time of any kind of competitiveness at the moment. You can see very much installation laps, data gathering, system checks. That's what we're on at the moment, and we are coming up to the quarter stage of this qualifying session already. And as already mentioned, it probably will be quite late on in the session before we start to see some really competitive times. At the moment, Eric Scalvini, well, getting a little bit caught up with Damien Sazishin, the Canadian driver who comes to ADAC GT4 Germany, a driver you might recognize if you were following the Going Pro SRO America series, presenter and now behind the wheel, often documenting his experiences. You can find him on YouTube, Damon Surzyshin, S-U-R-Z-Y-S-H-Y-N. Always worth checking out, Going Pro SRO America. And he is on the track here today. He's sharing with Ukrainian driver Yevgeny Sokolovsky. Didn't finish the race yesterday in the Pro Sport Racing Aston Martin Vantage, but we're looking to make up for that during this session today. Tyre warmers are not allowed in ADAC GT4 Germany, so you can see the drivers weaving, trying to generate some heat into the tyres and into the brakes. And even in these glorious summer temperatures here at Oschersleben, that takes a little bit of work. At the moment, there are about half the field out on track. Finding space is another issue, fairly short lap here, so not tripping over another car, not getting under anybody's feet, that is going to be critical. So everybody at the moment just cruising, nobody really putting in anything spectacular, just systems checks, getting heat into the tyres. But once we get into the second half of this session, it's probably going to get a little bit lively. And if the previous DTM session is anything to go by, we will see the times tumbling literally by the second. In the closing stages of the DTM session that we saw just now, the drivers that were on the front row with about 2 to 3 minutes remaining in the session eventually qualified mid-pack. Such was the evolution of the track. So Tim Reiter currently is being displayed at the top of the timing sheets in the Hofer Racing by Bonk Motorsport BMW, but that is not a hot lap, so that will change as the session goes on. Hofer Racing by Bonk Motorsport, who have completed in every round of the ADAC GT4 Germany to date, as indeed have Allied Racing, Jan Kasperlik's team, once again taking part in the 5th season of this series. It is a series that has been a big success story. Always big grids, always lively and great action. And we have high expectations here for the 2023 season. We have high expectations from Hugo Sasser and Mike David Ortman, looking to become the first drivers ever to successfully defend their title. Yesterday did not go any way towards making that happen, but I'm sure they will put that behind them and move on. The reigning trophy champions are Christian Koch and Tom Kiefer. They seem to have permanent ownership of that title, and they're looking to do it yet again. Another title for them this year if they can make that happen. In last year's championship, it was ADAC Motorsport who took the team championship. Again, they will be looking to retain that this year. Where focus is very much on Eric Scalvini at the moment as he just looks to build up some pace. I think it's fair to say it was a pretty steep learning curve for him yesterday, and he learned some pretty harsh lessons, but very different. I think it was a Hyundai he was driving in TCR Germany last year. Couldn't be any more different in the Wimmer Werk Motorsport Porsche 718 Cayman GT4. Wimmer Werk, one of the many teams who join us in this championship this year. Another very noticeable team, BWT Mucker Motorsport, a legendary team. They also joined the GT4 Germany, as indeed do Volkenhorst Motorsport, amongst others. We have Project One here, keep an eye out for that car, with Michael Makesh and Maxime Osten at the wheel. We're riding on board now with Hugo Sasser, and now he's starting to turn the wick up a little bit. He didn't even get to drive the car yesterday. I saw him in the paddock and he was walking around in shorts and t-shirt because he never got the opportunity to sit in the seat of that Aston Martin. Currently a 1:30.124, so that's the first benchmark, but not really hanging it out too much. Cedric Pirot, you can see the purple block on your screen. That indicates he's the quickest of anybody in Sector 1 of the track in the unusual Toyota Supra, but getting caught up and tripping up a little bit with Stefan Stanchiev, who is in front of him in the Porsche. Stefan Stanchiev, who celebrated his 19th birthday on Tuesday, would love to celebrate that with a win here, wouldn't he? Cedric Pirot, though, in the one and only Toyota Supra, currently circulating. And Pirot of Pirot Sports, who shares with Robin Falkenbach, and they are a great combination in that Toyota. So now Hugo Sasser continuing to turn it up a bit, a 32.4 in Sector 1, popping up into P2. Now Mo Ritson. Mo Ritson, the British driver, alongside another British driver, Tom Wood, in the FK Performance BMW M4 GT4 G82. To give it its full title, the G82 model coming out for this year, complete with that distinctive and I think very handsome front grille. And the two English drivers putting that to good effect. Currently running P2, and that was Hugo Sasser just trying a little bit too hard, finding the limit of the circuit. He crosses the line. The first driver into the 20s, a 129.836 for Hugo Sasser, with Mo Ritson second, a 130.782, some 9/10 behind. I think there's quite a lot more still to come from these cars, so these are very much just early times on the board, even as we approach the halfway point of this session. Stefan Stanchiev, well, this isn't the birthday present he wanted. He's under investigation for potentially blocking the Toyota. We saw that just now, and he is under investigation. Meanwhile, David Yarn, there's a name for those of you who are familiar with GT racing, along with Janis Fitcher, a very strong partnership. Yarn and Fitcher in the number 31 car, the Avia WNS Motorsport Porsche 718 Cayman. They got a 5th place yesterday. Definite championship contenders here. They are not here to make up the numbers. And David Yarn, best of anybody in Sector 1, a personal best in Sector 2. He crosses the line. Let's see where he stops the clock. And it is a 129.980. So not quite as fast as Hugo Sasser's 129.836, but certainly closing in. Sasser, you can see from the red, has had a middle section that isn't better than anybody at the moment. He continues to push hard. The longer third section of this circuit is just coming to an end for him as he crosses the line and stops the clock with a 129.251. So improving all the time. It was a purple final sector as we look there at the Damon Sazishin car, and behind him, the number 5 of Tim Reiter, Hofer Racing by Bonk Motorsport BMW, one of several BMWs in the field here this weekend. David Yarn, purple again, a 32.280. That's a quick one. That is quicker than anybody so far. Let's see what he can do in Sector 2. At the moment, Tim Reiter getting caught up as well behind the Aston Martin, and whether that has impeded his progress or not, Damon Sazishin was in front of him, and it is his right to go down the pit straight on the racing line. So as long as he's not perceived to have blocked him, then all should be well. And Stefan Stanchev, once again, perhaps getting his mirrors full of another car. Everybody on this small circuit, as Gabriel Piana goes quicker, so 129.207 in the number 2, Hofer Racing by Bonk Motorsport BMW. Track getting faster, but finding the space, you can see it is difficult here on this circuit, finding that gap. We've got 8 minutes remaining of this session, and now the times are starting to come tumbling. It's Gabriel Piana who leads the way, the 2021 champion in the BMW at the top of the timing sheets. David Yarn now into P2, Hugo Sassa down into P3. And Sassa will no doubt be coming back strong on that as he tries to fight back for that position. Hanging the back end out, that's Hendrik Still, another driver with lots of experience. He finished 14th yesterday, not the best day. Currently in 7th place, but looking to improve on that. 2 personal best sectors as he comes out of the 14th turn, out onto the pit straight to break the timing bean. And it's Hendrik Still who stops the clock at 129.414. So it moves him up to P4, but still a little bit of work to do there. 2 tenths down on the leader. Nathan Schaap, he's a great driver in the Allied Racing team, one of the real up-and-coming young superstars, currently in P9. A Dutch driver that has been selected to race for Team Allied this year. Rodrigo Almeida, he had a lively race yesterday along with Josef Knopp in the number 8 car, eventually finishing in 13th place. We welcome BWT Mucker Motorsport to the grid of ADAC GT4 Germany, the legendary team that we see in so many other classes. And Josef Knopp drove for BWT Mucker Motorsport in his Formula 4 days, not that long ago, it has to be said, and stays with the team in the ADAC GT4. So Rodrigo Almeida now crossing the line to stop the clock at a P11, so a bit of work to do from there. It's still Gabriel Piana who leads the way with a 129.207. David Yarn still in 2nd, and Hugo Sassa still in 3rd. Most of the cars now out on the track, and with a little under 6 minutes remaining, we're expecting to see drivers moving up the order. Nobody at the moment putting in purple sectors, but plenty of personal bests, amongst them Max Jansen, who shares driving duties with Nico Hanke and finished in that 3rd place on debut yesterday. And what a great drive it was for Max Jansen. So the car in front of him just going wide, picking up a little bit of dirt, which will slow the car just slightly, losing that traction. But let's see whether Max Jansen can improve on his P7. He crosses the line up to P4. Now keep an eye on the 54 car, Maxime Osten. This guy is rapid. He is the outgoing BMW M2 Cup champion. He's come across to GT4. He has been rapid. He doesn't mind mixing it, and he doesn't mind getting a hot lap in, which is exactly what he does here, a 129.818. Perhaps not quite as quick in the final sector as he would have liked, so up to P11, but still pretty useful. And still nobody getting anywhere near Gabriel Piana. We look at Simon Conor Prim in the 85 car, popping up in P7, and it was he who won the race along with Jan-Philipp Springhob yesterday in the CV Performance Group Mercedes. A great start to the season for them, just held it all together. So Enzo Juli in the number 35 car, another Vulcan-Horst Motorsport BMWs. Yesterday's second place finisher, along with Sami Matti Trogan. He will be sharing the driving duties in this afternoon's race with him. Looking to improve on his position. This is going to be an improvement. 35 car jumps up to P9. So Enzo Giuli moving to the right end of the field. Still a little bit of speed to find. We know the BMWs can do it. We've got a BMW leading from a Porsche, from an Aston Martin. Hugo Sassa currently in the pits, and with 3 3/4 minutes remaining, is going to be struggling a bit to come out and improve on that time. Maxime Osten still continuing to put in the hot laps. The 54 car out onto the pit straight. Is he going to improve from his 12th place? Crosses the line, and it is an improvement by 2 spots. So Maxime Osten 4/10 down on the lead, and there's somebody going wide there. That looked like the 007 car, and it looks like a problem. That is for Theo Noe. We welcome Theo Noe back to ADAC GT4 Germany. Now, is that mechanical or is that a flat tyre? We'll get a look at that in a bit, but it's his qualifying session is over. It looks like all the tyres are up, so a issue with that Aston Martin, and he very wisely shortcuts it back to the track. You can see he comes into turn 1. There's smoke pouring from the back of the car. All is not well there, and he might even be dropping a little bit of oil. I should think the ADAC Motorsport team are going to have a busy afternoon getting ready for the session later on, because that looks like a serious problem with the Aston Martin Vantage. Blue smoke pouring out from underneath. It's certainly not a puncture, it is a mechanical issue. And I have to say, that looks pretty terminal in terms of the engine on that car. So that'll be the best that he can manage. At the moment, Theo Noe in P12, so that is the best that he is going to manage here in this session. He had done a purple section. You can see the frustration. Really not impressed at all. Good heavens. I'm kind of pleased I don't speak French, really, because probably not translatable on daytime television. So Theo Noe is clearly unimpressed with what is occurring with his car. Now, the fastest car on the track, Gabriel Piana, is under investigation for speeding in the pit lane. So Gabriel Piana, in the Hofer Racing by Bonk Motorsport BMW, currently being investigated by the stewards, and that might be significant as this session winds to a close. So cars coming in to the pits now. We're riding on board with Cedric Pirro. We've still got a minute and 15 seconds left on the clock, but I'm thinking there might be oil down on the track, and I'm thinking this might be the end of the session. The cars are coming into the pit lane, even though there's a minute left, and I think the proof there is that there is oil on the track, and if that is the case, nobody is going to improve their time. And the Mercedes, it's the number 4 car, I think it was, that went wide there, which would have Marcel Lanez, and yes, the flag is flying. So it's the 84 car, in fact, and that was Patrick Steinmetz, a driver who we saw in a BMW last year, now at the wheel of the CV Performance Group Mercedes AMG GT4. But the oil down on the track, well, that is exactly what the people who were waiting to the end of the session to put in a hot lap really didn't want, and that means that the track is only going to get slower, and there are just 2 cars circulating at a slow pace. So our qualifying session, which we anticipated building up to an explosion, has, I'm afraid, rather disappeared in a bit of a whimper. The headline is Gabriel Piana on pole position, but he is under investigation by the stewards for speeding in the pit lane. I would suggest that would probably be a fine rather than a grid penalty if they do act on that. David Yarn, he's going to be very strong from there in the number 31 car. Defending champion Hugo Sassa, already a better day than yesterday in P3 with Max Janssen. Keep an eye on the number 34 Vulcan-Horst Motorsport BMW lining up in P4 ahead of Hendrik Still and Tim Reiter. Yesterday's winner, Simon Conner Prim, in P7 ahead of Marcel Lanez, Enzo Juli and Maxime Osten rounding out the top 10. Despite that engine blow-up, Teo Noe is in 12th. He is behind Nathan Schaap in the 22 Allied Racing Porsche. Then Rodrigo Almeida, Christian Koch, that's a good session from him in the trophy category in 15th ahead of Cedric Pirot. Jessica Batman, we haven't even mentioned her yet, sharing driving duties with her brother Andreas Batman. Those of you who watch TCR Germany will be very familiar with that name. Finn Zulav ahead of Patrick Steinmetz. Stefan Bastanchiev, who's another driver under investigation for alleged blocking, rounds out the top 20. There is your official confirmation. Gabriel Piana, 129.207, set while the track was oil-free, ahead of David Yarn, Hugo Sasser, Max Jansen, Hendrik Still, Tim Reiter, Simon Conoprim, and Marcel Lanez. Enzo Juli and Maxime Osten, Nathan Schaap, Teo Noe, Mo Ritson and Tom Wood down in 13th. I think they were probably hoping for more than that. Rodrigo Almeida, Christian Koch and Cedric Pirot, and Jessica Batman ahead of Finn Zulav, Patrick Steinmetz, Stefan Bastanchiev, Emil Yedrum, Dominic Schack, Fabian Volvend, part of an all-female partnership with Celia Martin, and Tano Neumann rounding out the top 24. 25th, Matav Nuramo and Eric Scalvini, another troubling session for him. And they finished penultimate ahead of Damon Sazishin for Pro Sport Racing. So we're all set fair for what will be an exciting race this afternoon. It will be race 2 of a 12-race season here in the ADAC GT4 Germany. Make sure you join us. It will be at 5 o'clock local time, so quite late in the afternoon. We're going to have a quick look at the points here. Courtesy of yesterday's win, Simon Conoprim and Jan Philip Springhob ahead of Sammy Matrog and Enzo Juli. Nico Hanke, Max Jansen rounding out the top 3. We didn't really mention Dennis Bulatov and Marcel Lanez, who started on pole position yesterday but picked up a drive-through penalty, eventually coming home in 4th place. It's going to be exciting, so keep your eyes open. Join us again this afternoon, 5 p.m. local time, for race 2 of the weekend, race 2 of the season for ADAC GT4 Germany. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.